Hello and welcome to the Philippines. This is a special video. Just goes out to those who support the channel financially through PayPal, Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, and any other way. Really appreciate that support that a few of you give. Anyway, this is about corruption in the Philippines and how it can affect you and some ways to deal with that. I've had a number of instances where I've seen it here in the Philippines. I've talked to many other expats, and they've shared their experiences with me. But I like to keep things in perspective, and it happens all over the world. And personally, I've seen it happen in the U.S. I've been approached personally. I'll just tell you about a couple of times when I was in sales and marketing and material handling equipment. Once in a very large corporation, dealing with an engineer company. They've got a couple of plants in the Phoenix, Arizona area. They manufacture airbags for automobiles, for one thing. And I was there working on a project, trying to solve some problems, and the engineer, just out of the blue, who I was working with, said, "Me and my wife like to go to baseball games." And I was busy working on what I was the problem I was trying to solve. Didn't really dawn on me. I didn't realize it until I got home that night and was working on it, that this guy was asking me for a bribe. And I understood that if I didn't buy him baseball tickets, him and his wife, I may or may not get any more business from him. Anyway, it went against everything I've ever believed in, and I never did the homework to find out what baseball tickets cost. But I suspect he didn't want the tickets sitting way in the back. Anyway, I never got involved and never got any more business through that engineer. A second instance, I was doing noise control projects for a very large school district in a Phoenix, Arizona suburb, I guess, another city, and had done a couple schools, their big auditorium, multi-purpose rooms, and I think there was like 38 more to work on, potential jobs. Huge, would have kept me busy for a couple of years at least. And the a guy fairly high up in the hierarchy of the maintenance department, who I was dealing with in quoting these jobs, came out and suggested that he could kind of almost guarantee me the job if I could find a way to make it profitable for him. Not quite in those words, but anyway, there again, I did not bite on that hook. I didn't know if he was serious, if it was some kind of a trap to set me up to see if I would pay a bribe him in some way. Anyway, never did, and there again, never got any additional business. Here in the Philippines, corruption is much more out in the open. I've had people come out and say, "Well, how much would you like to pay for this service?" A government immigration guy many years ago. I wouldn't recognize him again, so I hope nobody expects me to point somebody out. But I was uh, I was in line to pick up an ACR card, and I had my extension. Uh, but you apply for your alien certificate of registration. You get it a month or two later. You go pick it up. They take your fingerprints. They take a picture of your iris, your eyeball, and all your fingerprints for your biometrics when you apply for that. And you need to do that if you're here 6 months. They need to apply for that. That's one of the requirements. I think it costs about 100 US, about 5,000 Philippine pesos, someplace in there, I think. Forget exactly. But anyway, I was there just to pick up my card, and a guy pulled me to the head of the line. He said, gave me my ACR card, showed me the ACR card, didn't give it to me yet. and said, we're going to allow you to extend your visa another 2 months. And he said, how much would you like to pay? It's usually 4,000 pesos. And I knew it was usually just over 3,000, 3,090 or something like that. And I stated that. And I said, I only have 4,000, which I did. I only had 4,000 pesos on me. And I told him that. And he said, well, go to an ATM machine. I told him I don't carry my bank cards with me because I've had problems with snatchers before. He gave me a real dirty look, and uh, anyway, gave me my ACR card, walked away. Didn't want my money in the office. He said, no, 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 not here. And I went and sat in the coffee shop for an hour or so. He came back with my extension and gave him the 4,000, and that was it. Now, this is one major reason why I suggest people use an agent like JRC, Visa Consultancy and Immigration Services. I've done many interviews with those guys, and I don't have to deal with that anymore. I've got a couple friends this has happened. We've been walking in J Center Mall where the immigration office is, and out of the blue, we're not even walking by the immigration office, and somebody comes up, apparently working, a fixer or probably working for the immigration department, comes up and says, have you guys been taken care of yet? Well, if we needed service, we'd go get in line, sign in, just like everybody else does. But the fact that they're approaching you out in the hallway means that if you tell them what service you're looking for, they're going to say, well, how much would you like to pay? And I've seen people, I've been standing in line when I used to go do my visa extensions all the time. And I've heard people get approached in line, standing in line. What do you need, sir? What do you need, sir? I can help you with that. you know, I can expedite it for you. And that's how out in the open it is here in the Philippines. Here's an article that came out just a day or two ago. 35 ex-BI, Bureau of Immigration officials, workers plead not guilty when arraigned on pastillas graft charges. And I think they were arrested or fired over about a year ago, I think, and it has to do with letting a lot of people in. We'll get just take a really quick look at part of the article here. A little later, I will also touch on corruption in the customs departments, as well as the various business departments that deal if you're dealing as a business, how people have been approached, and if they want things done, it costs extra, not just the normal fees that you would expect. Happens around the world. I know I had a friend that had a hotel in Vietnam. I stayed at his place in Saigon, Ho Chi Minh City, and he said, yeah, the police come by once a month for their paycheck. If you don't pay them, they'll find a reason to shut you down. Anyway, back to the article. The anti-graft court granted the prosecution's motion to remove Ignacio from the criminal charge sheet, as he is set to testify against his fellow BI officials who were accused of giving VIP treatment to 143 foreign passengers from 2017 to 2020 at $10,000 each for a total of $1.43 million. The bribery scheme was called pastillas because the foreign nationals were allowed entry into the country without undergoing profiling, screening, and checking, and the bribe money would then be placed in a wrapper that is used for the pastillas de leche treatment. And my understanding, this whistleblower, he had complained because oftentimes, my understanding is, each person that's involved in this gets a little bit of the money. And he and many others did not get part of this bribe money, and when they complained, they were told, well, it's for so-and-so's re-election campaign or election campaign. So you aren't going to get any. That's what I heard or read someplace. Not sure if that's fact or not, but anyway, one of the groups turned against the other group. And there's also been cases, I don't know, this might be the case where the Chinese were being allowed to come in under I think, um, on an SRRV, a retirement visa, and then they were working, people very young, in their 20s and 30s, way below the retirement requirements. And they were often working in POGOs, Philippine Offshore Gaming Organizations, I think that stands for. And let's talk about customs a little bit. You ship something here, and a company, if you're a company and you ship goods here, I've bought a number of, over the 7 years that I've been here, I've bought a number of goods, different items from different countries. And you get home and you go to use them, and you start. I read labels, I read packages, and a lot of times the labels are in foreign languages, many different foreign languages I don't understand. But a couple times I've seen packages only for sale in India or Pakistan, or only for sale in United Arab Republic, or only for sale in not for export, only for sale in Korea or whatever, something like that. And yet they're being sold here. So I know one time I asked a store owner, I said, "Do you have any?" Because after I had read that, I said, "Do you have any problems? How do you get this stuff shipped in here?" And he said, "Oh well, we have to wine and dine the proper individuals, and that takes care of the problem." Yeah. What about starting a business and operating a business here? And there are a few businesses that foreigners can own 100% of, and they've expanded that list of types of businesses, and I don't have all the details. That you can find it online. Uh, Call centers is one of the businesses that can be owned 100%, as a matter of fact, and there are hundreds, probably thousands of foreigners who fully own call centers here. I know a number of expats, foreigners who own resorts here, and I've been told by a couple of them that yeah, we went to renew our business license and this and that, the barangay license and on down the line, the various licenses, and he was wondering why he hadn't gotten his license yet, and his accountant told him that well, they want if you want to get it done expedited, they need another 5,000 pesos, about 100 US dollars. And I don't know the particulars, but if you want things done, just understand that. And I've had a Filipina lady that's done business here, and she says you have to understand how the system works, how things work here. And people are paid such a low wage. It's not an excuse for corruption, uh, but it is what's the word? Systemic. It is part of a big part of the culture. It's not a good part of the culture, but it is a big part. So if you're going to complain to somebody about it, be careful who you complain to, because you may be complaining to one of the people who's involved in it. Because I've been here so long, partly because I've been here so long, partly because of my YouTube channel, and the fact that I get into some of the immigration issues and interviews with JR at JRC Immigration Service Visa Services. I have a number of acquaintances that I've met, and they've got various issues. They've got problems. They applied themselves. They applied for the SRV retirement visa, and it's getting delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed. And people who have overstayed their visas, and I've approached a number of people. I've met a couple of people over the years who formerly worked in immigration and LTO, for instance. And stories I hear, well, yeah, we can help you. We can help your friend solve this problem. Uh, there's going to be some penalties and fees, and you may have to put a little extra candy on the table. Now, you all understand what that is. You're going to have to put a little extra candy on the table to get this taken care of. Otherwise, they could blacklist you and just put you on a plane on the next flight. That's part of the system here. One thing an agency like JRC, they know the system, they know the language, they've got a lot of experience. He's got several offices in it's got in J Center Mall and across from Ayala Mall here in Cebu City. J Center Mall where immigration is. He's got a Mole Bowl office. He's got a Dumaguete office. He's got an office over on Panglao Island off of Bohol. And I think he's got a couple agents up in the Manila area, but he can handle a lot of things by mail. Issues, try to help solve problems. And because they know the language, they know the system, they know what the office is looking at. If you're filling out forms, they know what types of things they're accepting as answers for some applications for various types of things. It costs, of course, service like that costs a little bit of money, but it can save you a lot of time and aggravation. I've got a friend that I think for over 2 years he's been trying to do his SRRB, and I know several people who've done their SRRB, and they've got it done. But he's still waiting. I think over 2 years. One problem was he started arguing with people, and that's the last thing you want to do. You don't want to argue with the officials who have the right to say no or to stick your application under the pile. So that is an introduction to corruption in the Philippines. A little bit of information about corruption around the world. Happens everywhere, folks. So don't be surprised. And I'm not surprised by almost anything that happens in the world anymore. Anyway, I will do my best to, on a regular basis, about the same time each month. Sometimes I get busier or whatever. I might be a week early or a week late in putting out a regular monthly video, especially for folks like you that have supported the channel financially, and really appreciate that. One other thing I want to mention, I get a lot of comments, and which is good. That helps to promote the channel actually in the algorithms. And I probably average 2 hours a day answering comments and emails, and it's YouTube is pretty good. They've got a pretty good setup, but I don't always get proper notifications, especially comments to comments. If I make a comment and then you comment to my comment, I don't get that in my regular stream. There's a special way I have to go to try to find all those types of comments. So it's quite normal that I miss the comments to comments, and that would add another, trying to find those, it would take another hour, 3 hours a day probably. But anyway, appreciate the comments. It all works into the algorithms, helps promote the channel. And anyway, take care, stay safe and healthy, and I'll see you next time.